Hello students, here the part second of the chapter The Enemy. The Enemy written by Pearl S. Buck. In the previous video, we have discussed the part 1 and in this video we will discuss the part second. Now we will continue. Let's get started. Oh, how he is bleeding, Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. The mist screened them now completely, and at this time of day no one came by. The fisherman had gone home, and even the chance beachcombers would have considered the day at an end. Here, solemn is used for serious and concerned, and beachcomber a vagrant who makes a living by searching beaches for articles of value and selling them. They are called beachcomber. Here, Hannah was concerned that the man was injured and said in a low voice that he was bleeding. The mist had intensified now. The three of them could not be spotted by anyone. Moreover, the fisherman and the ragpickers did not visit the place at that time of the day. The best thing that we could do would be to put him back in the sea, Sadao said, answering himself. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, he stood up and dusted the sand from his hands. Yes, undoubtedly that would be best, Hannah said steadily, but she continued to stare down at the motionless man. Here, Sadao answered to himself and said that the best thing was to put the man back into the sea. As the bleeding stopped, he stood up and removed the dust from his hands. Hannah supported his opinion but looked intently at the man as he lay still. If we sheltered a white man in our house, we should be arrested, and if we turned him over as a prisoner, he would certainly die, Sadao said. The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea, Hannah said, but neither of them moved. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. Sadao said that if they gave him shelter, they would be arrested for sheltering an enemy. If they handed him over to the Japanese army as a prisoner, then he would die in the prison, as he thought that both the options were not favorable. So the best thing, so the best option was to put him back into the sea. Hannah added that the kindest act for them was to put him back into the sea. Both of them did not move ahead to do so. Rather, they stared at the motionless figure with dislike. They disliked him because he was an enemy, an American. What is he? Hannah whispered. There is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. He took up the battered cap. Yes, they're almost gone, was the faint lettering. A sailor, he said, from an American warship. He spelled it out US Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. Here, Hannah was inquisitive as she asked about the man's identity. Sadao replied that he appeared to be an American. He picked up the torn cap and read the words written on it, which were slightly visible. He said that the man was a sailor from an American warship and read out the words US Navy. Written on the cap, they concluded that the man had been taken into captivity during the war. He has escaped. Hannah cried softly, and that is why, and That is why he is wounded. In the back, Sadao agreed. Here, Sadao and Hana discussed that the man had tried to escape from the prison and had been shot in the back. They hesitated, looking at each other. Then Hana said with resolution, "Come, or be able to put him back into the sea." They were not able to gather the courage to throw him into the sea back. Hana called upon Sadao with firmness. She asked him if he was ready to put him into the sea. "If I am able, are you?" Sadao asked. "No, no, no," Hana said. "But if you can do it alone." Sadao told her that he was able to do so and asked that did Hana have the courage for it. Hana replied in the negative and added that if he could not do it by himself, then she had to help him. Sadao hesitated again. "The strange thing is," he said, "that if the man were whole, I could turn him over to the police without difficulty. I care nothing for him. He is my enemy. All Americans are my enemy, and he is only a common fellow. You see how foolish his face is, but since he is bonded." Sadao was reluctant in throwing the man into the sea. He reasoned that if the man was well, he would hand him over to the police without any hesitation. He added that he was not concerned about the man and considered him to be an enemy as he was an American. He commented that the injured man was a common man as his face looked as if he was a foolish person. So he wanted to say that he was not bothered about the injured man, but his only concern was that he was wounded. "You also cannot throw him back to the sea," Hana said. "Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house." Here Hana said that if he could not throw him into the sea, then the second option was there to carry him home. Sadao was concerned that the servants would object as they would shelter an enemy. "We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police. As indeed we must, Sadao. We must think of the children and your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war." Suddenly, Sadao agreed. "I would not think of doing anything else." Here Hannah said that they would tell them that they intended to hand him over to the police once he recovered. She told him that they must do that. She added that they must consider their children's future and Sadao's position. If they did not hand over a prisoner of war to the police, they would be in danger. Sadao replied that certainly he would do so and he did not think of doing anything else. Thus, agreed. Together they lifted the man. He was very light, like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time until it is only feathers and skeleton. So, his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps and into the side door of the house. This door opened into a passage, and down the passage they carried the man towards an empty bedroom. Fowl means here cock or hen. Here Sadao and Hana lifted the injured man. injured man into the house. They carried him. In his house, he was very light. The writer compares his weight to that of a hen that has not been fed for a long time, and its body loses flesh and reduces into mere feathers and skeleton only. The man's arms were hanging, and the duo carried him up the steps into the side door of the house. The door opened into a passage, and they bent down the passage towards an empty bedroom. It had been the bedroom of Sadau's father, and since his death, it had not been used. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Everything here and everything here had been Japanese to please the old man, who would never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep in a foreign bed. Hannah went to the wall cupboards and slid back a door and took out a soft quilt. She hesitated. The quilt was covered with flowered silk, and the lining was pure white silk. Here, the bedroom belonged to Sadao's father, where the person was carried and had not been used after his death. The injured man was laid on the thick mat on the floor. The writer describes the room. Everything in the room was Japanese, as Sadao's father disliked foreign things. Hannah went to the cupboard in the wall and took a soft quilt. She resisted putting it on the injured man. The quilt was made of silk, had a flowery print on it, and the lining was made of pure white silk. He is so dirty, she murmured in distress. Yes, he had better be washed. Sadao agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. Distress means here sadness. Hannah was sad and spoke slowly that the man was very dirty. Sadao said that the man had to be washed. Sadao asked Hannah to get hot water so that he could wash the man. I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. We shall have to tell the servants. He is here. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave these children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Hannah did not want that Sadao should touch the man. She said that they would ask the servant to wash the injured man. She would call Yumi to leave attending the children for a few minutes and wash him. Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so. He agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. But the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. It was faint, but it was there. He put his hand against the man's cold breast. The heart too was yet alive. Sadao thought for a moment and then agreed with Hannah. He asked her to call Yumi. Yumi is a servant in their house. So while he could call the other servants, before he could go out, he saw the injured man's face. It was so pale that he stopped bent forward and felt his heartbeat to see if he was alive. The heartbeat was very faint, but it was there. Then Sadao placed his hand on the man's heart to feel it. It was also beating. Sadao concluded thus that the injured man was alive. He will die unless he is operated on, Sadao said, considering the question is whether he will not die anyway. At this, Sadao commented that if the man was not operated upon, it means he would die. He added that even he was operated upon and saved, he would die at the hands of the Japanese army. So either way, he would die. Hana cried out in fear, "Don't try to save him. What if he should live?" Hana screamed with fear and asked Sadao not to save the man. She feared that if he lived, they would be in danger. What if he should die? Sadao replied. He stood gazing down on the motionless man. This man must have extraordinary vitality, or he would have been dead by now. But then he was very young, perhaps not at 25. You mean die from the operation? Hana asked. Yes, Sadao said. Vitality means here energy or life. Sadao questioned that. What would be the implications if the man died? He looked down towards the injured man and wondered that he had a lot of energy which had kept him alive through such torture. He countered his thought with the fact that the man was very young. He seemed to be 25 years of age, and at that age, people do have a lot of energy. Hana asked that did he mean the man could die during the operation? Sadao confirmed her question. Hana considered this doubtfully, and when she did not answer, Sadao turned away. At any rate, something must be done with him, he said, and first he must be washed. He went quickly out of the room, and Hana came behind him. She did not wish to be left alone with the white man. He was the first she had seen since she left America, and now he seemed to have nothing to do with those whom she had known there. Here he was her enemy, a menace, living or dead. Menace means here danger or threat. So Hannah was pondering over this possibility and she was taking time to reply. Sadao laughed. He said that something had to be done with the injured man irrespective of the result. The first thing was to wash him. As he walked out of the room, Hannah followed him. She did not want to remain in the room alone with a white skinned man since she had left America. He was the first white man she had seen. She had no contact with the Americans whom she had met as they were her enemies. This injured man was also an enemy and was a threat to them. She turned to the nursery and called Yumi. But the children heard her voice and she had to go in for a moment and smile at them and play with the baby boy, now nearly 3 months old. Over the baby's soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth, Yumi, come with me. Hannah turned to the children's room and called out to Yumi. As the children heard her voice, she bent inside, smiled at them, and played with her 3-month old son. As she held the baby, who had soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth to Yumi, asking her to come. I will put the baby to bed. Yumi replied, he is ready. She went with Yumi into the bedroom next to the nursery and stood with the boy in her arms while Yumi spread the sleeping quilts on the floor and laid the baby between them. Here Yumi replied that the baby was ready for sleep and that she must put it to sleep before accompanying her. Hannah held the baby and went to the bedroom next to the nursery with Yumi. Yumi spread the sleeping coils on the floor and laid the baby between them. Then Hannah led the baby quickly and softly to the kitchen. The two servants were frightened at what their master had just told them. The old gardener, who was also a house servant, pulled the few hairs on his upper lip. Here, Hannah led the way as they walked fast towards the kitchen. The two servants in the kitchen were scared after hearing their master's words regarding the injured man. The old gardener, who also worked as a servant, was pondering over the news and pulling the hair from his upper lip.